Gonna tilt down a little, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Oh, here we are. Welcome in, everybody. This is JE Live. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and joining me, we have an expert of the Titans, my friend Justin Melo. He's part of the Music City Audible podcast that I was just on, so you guys will have to check that out. And he also covers the NFL draft for the Draft Network and does Titan stuff for, all sorts of, websites and what have you. Justin, welcome in. I'm excited to learn more about the Titans, and I'm excited for my audience to learn more about the Titans today.
Well, I'm glad too, because not a lot of people say that. Most people tend to ignore the Titans and are perfectly happy ignoring them. And they've been worth ignoring in recent years. I can't even blame them if you're not a fan of the team. Although this year, there is a reason to track them, even if you're not a Titans guy. Number one pick in the draft, quarterback Cam Ward, certainly makes them a lot more exciting. Even if they're bad, makes them more exciting than they've been in recent years. So excited for this game. Rams, I think, got a hell of a football team. These two teams have played some really good games in recent years. Obviously, the year the Rams won the Super Bowl, the Titans got them there on Monday Night Football earlier in the season. Of course, the Super Bowl that Titans fans have tried to wipe from memory. The whole, the Men in Black machine thing there. We've tried to forget that one. But these two franchises have played a lot of good games throughout the years.
No, absolutely. It's actually been pretty wild how significant some of the games against this team have been. I mean, obviously the Super Bowl, but then you have, they had a drought of not winning the NFC title since 2003. And, I'm sure you remember the 80-yard Todd Gurley slip screen. That was kind of the poster of that. And then that was the emergence of Corey Littleton, who was, I believe, filling in for the injured Mark Barron, and then they realized, wow, we have something here. So yeah, there's been some interesting ones. There's also the no-win November of the Super Bowl season, and the Titans, that game, you felt like they could win, and then all of a sudden the Titans were just off and running. Jeffrey Simmons is blowing up the game every which way. It was pretty wild, but when you look at the Rams, they're making their road debut against the Titans, and the Titans are actually having their home opener. Because I don't know who pissed off or what. I don't know who Cam Ward pissed off in the scheduling, but wow, brutal draw of a schedule to start not only against Denver, but of course, like in the confines of Mile High Stadium and dealing with the altitude and dealing with that top defense. Brutal. But he's starting, his career off, and we talked about this on your show and off air. He's starting his career off with, he's on hard mode. It's only going to make things easier for him, right? So the Rams, dominant defense, just held CJ Stroud outside of the end zone entirely. That offense could not get past the 15. So the Rams are looking for 2-0 on the year. The Titans are aiming for their first win after a hard-fought loss against Denver, a game where they forced 4 turnovers in. So I was a little surprised by the result, but the Rams lead the all-time series 8-6, 8-6, including the Houston Oilers days, of course, but most notably Super Bowl victory, NFC West victory, a clinching victory. And, the Rams, the last time they played the Titans, they were dominated at SoFi Stadium. So, a lot of interesting stuff, but I want to ask you, Justin, let's get this thing started here. The Titans in this game, who are some key Titans for this Rams audience to look out for?
Well, Cam Ward's an obvious one, right? Rookie quarterback, number 1 overall pick, making his second career start. Thought he was a lot better in that week 1 game against the Broncos than the stat line indicates. So to keep it as brief as I can, he was 12 of 28 with like 112 passing yards, no touchdowns, no turnovers. His receivers really let him down in this game. So he's got 12 completions, right? Well, he had 4 drops. Calvin Ridley, who I would, in a shortcut way, is another Titan to look out for in this game. We heard a lot about the chemistry between Cam Ward and Calvin Ridley throughout the offseason. Cam Ward, and no one took him seriously, but called Calvin Ridley the best receiver in the NFL. Just heaps praise on him. And make no mistake, Calvin Ridley's a darn good receiver. 1,000 yards last year with just the worst passing game in the NFL with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph under center. They expect big things from the Cam Ward-Calvin Ridley connection this year. Got off on the wrong foot on week 1. Calvin Ridley with 3 very uncharacteristic drops in that contest. Before that game, Brian Callahan, head coach, talked about needing to get Calvin Ridley involved, despite the fact that the Broncos had the reigning defensive player of the year in Pat Surtain at cornerback. Well, look, he had 8 targets. They certainly tried to get him involved, but the output was 4 catches for 28 yards and 3 drops. I imagine they're going to try to get Calvin Ridley involved in this game early and often. But I go back to Cam Ward with the 12 completions. You get 4 drops. Alec Ioman, a rookie receiver, dropped 1 as well. And then you had an incompletion to Gunnar Helm in the first quarter that you can call me biased if you'd like, but you go watch the replay. The refs called this a completion on the field. I thought there was no doubt in my mind it was a completion. Sean McVay throws the challenge flag, and we were just shocked when they reversed that call and gave the Broncos an incomplete pass, or assigned the Titans an incomplete pass on that one. Thought Gunnar Helm had clearly secured that ball near the sideline. And then the one that went viral that you probably saw was the non-challenge call, where Cam Ward on 1st and 20, it just goes to show you the type of gumption he's already playing with. 1st and 20 goes for a 25-yard pass down the sideline to Alec Iomanner, who appears to have caught. I mean, on live, you couldn't tell if he caught it or not. The refs understandably rule him out of bounds. Well, you get to the replay. Looks like he tapped that elbow down in bounds. And if you know the rule book maybe better than the Titans do, you know that 1 elbow equals 2 feet. Well, there's a lot of digging that's gone on this one. And I actually kind of feel for Coach Callahan on this one because he took the grunt of it. And look, his answer in the postgame presser was not good. But after doing a little digging, from what I understand, is his initial feel was to challenge it. And then he got some advice from the gentleman whose job is to dictate whether you challenge these things or not. It sounded like that gentleman maybe wasn't as familiar with the rule book as he should have been and said, no, we don't challenge it. What NFL fans don't understand about this situation, this is bang, bang. This is like quick 5-10s. Okay, don't challenge it. Brian Callahan calls the plays. Now he's got to get the play call in, right? Okay, we're not challenging it. Let's get the call in so we're avoiding a delay of game. Long story short, to bring it back to my original point, 12 completions for Cam Ward. You could have given him 6 more with the 4 drops. The weird overruled one to Gunnar Helm, and then the one that would have been overruled maybe if they challenged it to Alec Iomanner. All of a sudden, he's not 12 of 28. He's like 18 of 25, right? And you'd be and the national media, who looks at box scores only, would be feeling a lot better about it, right? Cam Ward was really good in this game. He's one to watch. Calvin Ridley, as I mentioned. And then the name that you mentioned that Rams fans maybe have not have forgotten yet, although I think winning a Super Bowl helps, but Jeffrey Simmons, who just dominated them in that game a couple of years ago. I'm not going to say it's going to feel like deja vu, but he really hasn't fallen off at all. He's just as good now as he was then. I think you mentioned on our podcast, Music City Audible, 7 or 8 pressures he had against the Broncos. He had the Titans' only sack in that game. It actually was a strip sack. The Titans recovered that one. He's still really, really good. I know the Rams are dealing with some injuries up front. If there's a weakness that the Titans are going to try to exploit, it's that interior of the Rams offensive line, assuming that those guards don't play. I'll be honest with you, I'm also not super high on Coleman Shelton. I think he's probably a league average center. I might even go slightly below league. I mean, they cut him a couple years ago. He went to the Bears, didn't have a very good year. Now he's back. Jeffrey Simmons, Cam Ward, Calvin Ridley, L'Jarius Sneed, Tavondre Sweat, a couple of guys who were on snap counts in week 1. Well-known names, probably going to play a bit more here against the Rams in week 2. So it's a top-heavy roster for the Titans. Depth is an issue, but they got some stars that could, potentially swing the game one way or the other.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And again, I mentioned on your show, I actually kind of viewed them as one of these sleeper teams. Last year, I always picked 2 teams, one from the AFC, one from the NFC. And last year, I picked the Commanders in the NFC. And I nailed that one. I just couldn't bet against Dan Quinn. I think I felt like he was ready. It'd been enough time since he had been a head coach. He was ready to come back. But then on the Titans end, on the AFC end, I like the Titans. And I think the biggest stipulation was Will Levis. And I was expecting Will Levis to show a little bit more than he did. I never liked Will Levis as a prospect ever, but I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Did not work out. I also like Brian Callahan, so I think that was part of it. And then, of course, I really like Denard Wilson, the defensive coordinator. So I just felt like that was a team where when they got the number 1 overall pick, now they're going to get Cam Ward. I just felt like they were in a really good position. That said, don't think they have like the easiest schedule, as you can see from the start of the season. So I don't have them necessarily going, into the playoffs or anything, but I do think they're going to be a very tough team. Later on in the season, they're going to be really tough and not a team you want to face. So I think the Rams are facing them at the perfect time right now. Anytime you get to face a rookie quarterback this early on in his career, it's the perfect time. That said, I got some key matchups here I want to bounce off you, okay? The first one, Dan Moore versus Jared Verse. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, you had said some things about Dan Moore on the music on our podcast. I'm going to add a little more context to for the sake of this, but I totally got your point on our show. But the reason the Titans signed Dan Moore to a 4-year, $82 million contract is they had some of the worst left tackle play in the NFL, the worst offensive tackle play in the NFL over the past couple seasons. If you don't think it can get worse than Dan Moore, you didn't have the pleasure of watching Dennis Daly and Andre Dillard in back-to-back years like Titans fans did. They went into this offseason saying, we've really got to fix this problem. Great offensive tackles don't really hit free agency. Like, teams keep them, right? We know it's going to be hard to address it through the draft because we're taking Cam Ward at number 1 overall. We're not taking a left tackle at number 1. We're not trading out of that pick to get other picks. So maybe we can take a left tackle a little bit later. We've got to fix this problem. $20 million for Dan Moore, it sounds like a lot of money, but tackles are making $30 million in the NFL nowadays, right? So for them, this was let's get a guy that could we've got a ton of cap space. Let's find a guy that could give us league average play at left tackles. Believe it or not, league average play is so much better than what they were getting before he got there. And believe it or not, Titans fans have done all the digging on this. We know how many sacks Pro Football Focus said he gave up last year. We know how many pressures. Some of the Titans' line of thinking, a lot of those sacks and pressures came within the confines of the AFC North, the division he played in, where he had to go up against Myles Garrett and Trey Hendrickson 4 times a year. And a Baltimore Ravens defense that's really good at blitzing, getting after the quarterback. Believe it or not, all those pressures he gave up, look at what Dennis Daly and Andre Dillard gave up for them at left tackle. Both those guys got benched in back-to-back years. They played about half a season and gave up the same amount of pressure as Dan Moore gave up all of last year in 1,000 snaps. So they weren't fooled by Dan Moore. They didn't go into this thinking he's a high-level left tackle. They're just thinking, we've got the cap space. This is a problem. Look at the way they structured the contract. They can get out of it rather quickly. They're like, this is a bit of a risk, but he's so much better than what we've had. We can't go into this year with Andre Dillard or whoever protecting our rookie quarterback's blind side. With that said, he wasn't good enough in week 1, and they know that the best pass rushers in the NFL are going to give him difficulties. But even then, it's got to be a bit better than it was. Nick Bonito, the star rusher of the Broncos, according to Next Gen Stats, had 7 of his 9 pressures in that game against Dan Moore. Now, the Titans are going to go into this matchup with Jared Verse probably not feeling a whole lot better about it. I think I would put Jared Verse in sort of that same tier as like a Nick Bonito, right? Like a really good, maybe not elite pass rusher. And when I say elite, I kind of, that's a small Myles Garrett, Max Crosby. I don't think Nick Bonito or Jared Verse have reached that level yet, but they might be on their way, and they're probably just a tier or 2 below them as of now. So this is a tough matchup for Dan Moore. All that context I just mentioned, Titans fans aren't going to give a crap about it. They know that they paid him $82 million, and they expect him to protect the blind side. So pressure is on him rather quickly. And that performance against Jared Verse is going to be under a microscope for him and the Titans.
Yeah, that's not a good matchup, Justin. That is not. I feel for Cam. That is going to be tough. And then the other matchup I got. Well, I got 3 more. We'll say Bo Limmer versus Jeffrey Simmons. I like Limmer. This is not going to be an easy one.
Yeah, if you want to give one that's going to tip in the Titans' favor, it's certainly this one. I mean, Jeffrey Simmons is probably still a top 5 defensive tackle in the NFL. He's got no guaranteed money left on his contract. He switched agencies this offseason. He's incredibly motivated to land another expensive, rich contract from the Titans. And you know as well as I do, Jake, like that's one of the best motivating factors guys can go into a season with. And he looked the part in week 1. He was very good for the I mean, he took 2 very boneheaded penalties, but in terms of level of play, he was very good for the Titans in that game against Denver. 7 or 8 pressures, as you said. He had a strip sack in it, constantly in the backfield, shedding blocks. He dropped 25 pounds of like mostly fat this offseason. He looks bigger, stronger, slimmer, believe it or not. At 300-something pounds, he looks slimmer than he's ever looked in a Titans uniform. They're projecting a really big season for him. And if the Titans are going to win this game flat out, in all honesty, if they have any chance of pulling the upset, they're going to need a performance out of him like he gave them a couple of years ago when they played the Rams at SoFi. If I remember correctly, that was the first Titans game post-Derrick Henry injury. And everyone thought the Titans didn't have they're going into it with Adrian Peterson. Titans don't have a chance in that one.
Yeah.
They got 3 sacks out of Jeffrey Simmons. To this day, I still say that was the best Jeffrey Simmons performance in a Titans uniform. Sorry, Rand. That's literally the best performance he's probably ever given them. And if they have a chance of upsetting them here in week 2, they're going to need something similar. They're going to need him to just be a game wrecker up the middle. And certainly they're going to love the matchup against one of the Rams' backup guards, assuming that that's the case.
Yeah, and then you have the Titans interior offensive line. Peter Skoronski, I thought, played a really good game. I thought that might have gone unsaid, not by you, but just in general. So I wanted to give him his props. You kind of get clumped into it when you're going against the Denver Broncos.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
Thought he looked really good. Lloyd Cushenberry, not his best game against his former team, but I think he's one of the better centers in football. Kevin Zeitler, I think the Lions are going to wish that they kept him. That's a really good interior, right? But how do they stack up going up against Kobe Turner and Poona Ford and Braden Fisk and the rotation that we saw? Tyler Davis ended up having quite the game last week, even picked up his first career sack against the Texans. What are your thoughts on that matchup between those two?
Well, the Titans are expecting the interior of the O-line to be one of their strengths this year. And in all honesty, Peter Skoronski, I'm glad you said it, is one of the better, more underrated guards in the NFL. I keep saying people are going to be shocked when his rookie contract expires. And it'll probably be in Tennessee. But whether it's in Tennessee or elsewhere, he's going to get like $25 million a year. Like, that's what guards are. Like, what did the Rams give the guard? Look at Robert Hunt, Carolina, a couple off seasons ago. That was almost the Kickstarter, like $20 million a year. Guards are getting upwards of $20 million a year. You bet your bottom Peter Skoronski is going to be in that company when that contract expires. Really outstanding. He was phenomenal against the Broncos. In relation to Lloyd Cushenberry, you talked about getting a rookie quarterback early in the schedule is the best time to get it. Well, you could be getting Lloyd Cushenberry at the best time too. Kudos to him. The fact that he even played in week 1, he suffered a season-ending Achilles injury in October of last year. For a 300-something pound center to even make it back for week 1, tip of the cap to him. But there's some rust you're going to have to knock off when that's the case, right? He's missed a lot of action. It's a very serious injury that he's coming off. Wasn't a very good game he played against the Broncos, and you imagine it's going to take him some time to get back in the swing of things. Kevin Zeitler, I thought, was stellar. Wasn't outstanding, but wasn't a liability either. I think they expect him to maybe be a little bit better than he was against Denver. But again, a lot of challenges there. I'm just trying to give some Rams fans context. When you see Cam Ward got sacked 6 times. When you see that he was under constant duress, it was coming from the tackles. It wasn't really coming up the middle. It was Dan Moore giving up all the pressures he did. And then one thing that Rams fans will, of course, want to monitor, the right tackle, J.C. Latham, who I think is a very good player and was playing a pretty good game against Denver up until that point, left it with a hip injury, was replaced by Ali Udo, like a 6th-round veteran now, who came in and was just a full-blown disaster for them at right tackle, especially against that Broncos D-line. So in the context of the interior, the Titans like their interior, and it was actually pretty good against Denver, where the Rams, and I think the Rams have a great interior defensive line. I think it's going to be good on good when it comes to the Titans interior and them. Both sides will probably win a couple of matchups where the Rams will feel like they have an advantage, especially if J.C. Latham is out, is at both tackle spots. Now, if J.C. Latham plays this game, similar to what I just said, they'll feel like they've got 50-50, against the Rams. Jared Verse and Byron, who I love, I think are great players. I just think J.C. Latham is sort of the same caliber of player. They've got very high expectations for him. But if he doesn't play in this game, I mean, what a huge matchup for the Rams on the edges.
Oh, man, Udo versus Byron Young. And then if they want to mix it up and throw Jared Verse over there,
yeah, the Titans don't want to see it. If the Titans fans have any hope that he's going to play, he actually had this hip issue coming into week 1. And I know for a fact that the Titans had 0% concern. Like, they're like, leading up to practice, he wasn't practicing leading up, and they're like, yeah, it's totally fine. Now, of course, there was obviously some sort of re-aggravation that kicked him out of this game. I imagine they want him to go. I imagine he wants to go. They were treating the hip like it was a non-issue. Maybe a bit of a bigger issue than they said, considering it knocked him out at some point. But,
yeah.
We'll be monitoring that Wednesday through Friday on the injury report.
No, that makes total sense. And then this last one here, and then I'm going to ask you what a Titans win and a Titans loss looks like. I love that question. But last matchup, Calvin Ridley versus Akello Witherspoon. Akello just basically lined up across Nico Collins for more than half of his snaps and held him to one catch for 4 yards. He's facing Calvin Ridley, who you mentioned had some drops. I'm a huge Calvin Ridley fan. The guy's a captain this year. He's got to be able to catch the football first. He's got to bail his rookie out. And he wouldn't even have to bail his rookie out because of how well he was throwing the ball to him. But still, we know what Ridley can do. We know how explosive he can be. What are your thoughts on that matchup coming in?
Yeah, I think Akello Witherspoon is a very underrated cornerback in the National Football League. With that said, I think the Titans will like their chances with Calvin Ridley, right? I mean, at his age, and he says this all the time, the year off, the suspension that he had, did wonders for his body. He is a way more explosive route runner than he should be given his age. There's a lot less tread on those tires because of that year off. The Titans are really high on him. They're high on the Cam Ward-Calvin Ridley connection. I think if you were the Rams, in all honesty, you almost wish that he caught all those balls against the Broncos. You almost wish he had a bigger game, because I think the Titans are going to put a lot. First of all, he's ticked off about it. He knows he let his rookie quarterback down. And the Titans know they need more for him. I think there's going to be a pretty big emphasis on trying to get him the ball. And don't get me wrong, I think Akello Witherspoon is a good enough corner to win a lot of those matchups. But I also think Calvin Ridley's a good enough receiver to win a lot of those matchups. And it only gets easier when the first matchup was against reigning Defensive Player of the Year, and who I think is the best corner in the NFL. That's not a controversial thing to say. And Pat Surtain, he's got the hardware to back it up. So I think the Titans will, like their chances in that matchup a little bit. And I think they'll put a lot of emphasis on trying to get him the ball. And I think both Ridley and Witherspoon will probably have their wins on those one-on-ones.
I like that. And then we'll wrap it up with this. And if you want to give me a score prediction, if you have one afterwards, we can do that. But what does a Titans win look like against the Rams on Sunday? And what does a Titans loss look like against the Rams on Sunday?
Yeah, I think a Titans win looks like they're a bit more efficient offensively. They avoid, Cam Ward being sacked 6 times. They catch the football for him, right? They don't have 4 drops. They cap it Titans fans weren't shocked that they lost that game to the Broncos. They were really shocked and disappointed in the manner and how they lost. You mentioned they created 4 turnovers. It was actually 6 if you count the turnover on downs. Like, the Broncos went for it twice on 4th down and didn't capitalize. So it felt like the Broncos tried to give that game to the Titans, and the Titans just gave it right back. Like, they knew it was a tough matchup, but the Broncos didn't play well. Like, the Titans did not see a good version of the Denver Broncos, and they still shot themselves in the foot enough to lose it. So it's avoiding getting in their own way. They were penalized 13 times for 130 yards. It's, what does the Titans win look like? It's not taking 13 penalties for 130 yards. It's capital. The Rams ain't going to turn it over 4 times. Sure as hell not going to turn it over 6 times. So it's capitalizing on those opportunities. It's protecting Cam Ward just a little bit better than you did. It's, when you're like, they started a drive on the 24-yard line. The Titans did at one point. They ended up punting on that drive because of poor play calling, poor execution, penalties, sacks. Like, it looks like Jeffrey Simmons wrecking the game, like he did a couple years ago. But mostly it's to be more efficient on offense, be a bit more disciplined. Don't take 13 penalties. And maybe Jeffrey Simmons helps you wreck the game on the other side. I'll keep it a bit shorter on what a Titans loss looks like, because it looks exactly like the way they lost the game in week 1, right? Like, it's the Rams defensive line creating pressure. It's the Titans dropping passes. They only had 1 sack, so they're not very high. Titans fans are not high on the pass rush going into this season at all. So it's about, do they get to the quarterback? I don't like their chances outside of Jeffrey Simmons, and I don't like their chances when you factor in how quickly Matt Stafford gets rid of the ball. So for me, a Titans loss looks just like it did on Sunday. Maybe they didn't even, they did turn it over once. Tony Pollard lost a fumble, but it looks like the Rams create a couple turnovers. They sack Cam Ward 5+ times. Titans take a bunch of holding penalties because they can't protect them. As good as the defense was for the Titans, they took a couple stupid penalties on defense offside. Jeffrey Simmons had an unnecessary roughness near the end that I thought was pretty boneheaded. Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who's a really good corner, but is really handsy and kind of is a little too physical for his own good sometimes. And it feels like the refs already know it, even though he's just a sophomore. He got flagged a bunch of times last year. He got flagged a couple times against Denver. He's just a physical dog who's like either a shutdown corner or gets a flag for how physical he is. So the Rams got a pretty straightforward blueprint to this one. It's a lot of the things that the Broncos did, and more so it's what the Titans didn't do or what they did. The Titans might shoot themselves in the foot in this one into a Rams victory.
Oh, man. Well, hey, I'm going to let you go because I know you're busy. But that said, do you have a score prediction or just who's winning this ball game?
Yeah, I got to go with the Rams. I know the Titans are going to be fired up at home. They're coming off an emotional loss because of all the blame that Brian Callahan took as a head coach. And Cam Ward is a psycho competitor, by the way. Like, if Rams fans don't know that, you want to know how much he hates to lose. There's a video online of him breaking a paddle in the locker room after he lost a game of ping pong to Calvin Ridley in July. Like, he's psycho. But I got to go with the better football team. I think the Rams are still in a competitive Super Bowl window here. The Titans had the number 1 pick and are in a very slow, patient rebuild, by the way. Like, the GM, they're going to take this. This is a multi-year rebuild in their opinion. So I got to go with the Rams. They're more equipped to win football games right now. I will go 23-17 Rams on the final score.
I'll go 23-13. So we have kind of a similar thought process there. I think Cam Ward's a guy that I've liked since Washington State. I was hoping he would come out and the Rams would be able to get him in the 3rd round that year. He did not. He went back to school and he ended up turning himself into a star. So good for him, and best of luck the rest of the way. Justin, really appreciate you coming on. The podcast was great. I'll be sure to link that when we have it. But this has been fun.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Jake. And I'm telling you, Cam Ward is the only thing. In all honesty, the Titans fans are looking forward to Sundays right now because they know this is a lengthy rebuild. They don't have a lot of confidence in the head coach. He could or could not be on the hot seat. They want to be patient with him, but fans are very ready to get rid of him already. As you know, the overreactions are always, plentiful on Sundays. But Cam Ward's that kind of guy that could steal a game for the Titans, and that's the kind of quarterback they think they have in him. He looked that way in Denver with the ball placement and the accuracy. Someone's got to catch the ball on Sunday.
That's absolutely true. Well, guys, be sure to follow Justin at JustinM_NFL, especially if you like draft content. He is so key and critical during draft season. Does interviews. He's the one you guys are sending me. Oh, did you see the Rams? Yep, Justin sent it to me. Rams met with this guy. Rams met with that guy. So be sure to do that. Justin, appreciate you, and best of luck this weekend.
Pleasure was all mine. Best of luck to the Rams. I'd love to see them go win another Super Bowl if it's not the Titans this year.
Hey, absolutely. So, all right, guys. Well, we're going to move on to the rest of the show. Really appreciate Justin's time, of course. We're going to get more into it. I think some people were already leaving because they thought I was wrapping up the show. We're doing it a little bit differently. So, first off, just want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, and that is Sleeper. The NFL season's here, in case you didn't know that. It means you have a chance to win 100x your cash on daily fantasy football. Pick on stats like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, fantasy points, and more for up to 100x payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right and you could win big. But in order to do so, you want to use my code JKB. You're going to get a $100 match on your first deposit. So be sure to check out the link in the description below. Sign up today and get in on the action with Sleeper. All right. So yeah, that was some great stuff. I only want the best for you guys. I only want to bring in the best. I love talking ball with some smart people. Justin knows football. He doesn't just know the Titans. He's an expert on the Titans. He also knows the NFL. So that's where we stand on this. I love being able to have people like that on. And that's the thing, right? So when you look at the Rams in this game, okay, I see a team that, and this is why I have 23-13 and not some blowout score, okay? I see a team that is going to be methodical. They're not afraid to play game manager with Stafford. They're not afraid to play the time of possession, the field possession, field position. I can't even say words, guys. What's going on with me? No, they're not afraid to play the field position battle. Okay, they can flip the field. They got probably, if he's not already the best punter in the league, Ethan Evans is one of the best punters in all of football. He is insane. They got a great kicker. They got a good special teams unit, right? I mean, they switched it this year. Now you got Josh Carty is kicking off, and the Texans had the worst kickoff starting field position in the league this past week. So the special teams unit is there. They saw some flashes. Jordan Whittington with a 74-yard return that gets called back because, well, Craig Rolstad was the official. He also had another explosive that was called back. I think in this game, it's going to be another short and intermediate game plan, and I'm okay with that. I know some people are going to, and I get this, right? Some people are going to be like, hey, I want the Rams to go deep down the field. I want them to use Tutu Atwell, whatever. They probably still can, but I think that this game plan is going to be very reminiscent to the Texans' game plan. They're going to get rid of the ball quickly. They're going to be efficient in the short and intermediate game. They're going to try to establish the run. It's going to be difficult. You got Tavondre Sweat, right, in that nose. He takes up a huge bunch of mass in the trenches, right? You got Sebastian Joseph Day, former Ram. You got Jeffrey Simmons, who is probably, if you're going to star any name in this game, it's Jeffrey Simmons. Like, he's not Aaron Donald, but he is essentially the closest thing they have to an Aaron Donald, where you have to literally stay up all night trying to find ways to contain him. And that's the thing. You can't stop him. You can only contain him. That's Jeffrey Simmons, not just against the run, but also as a pass rusher. So that's a big thing for me. L'Jarius Sneed, as mentioned by Justin, L'Jarius Sneed was on a snap count due to injury last week. Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who I'm a big fan of, love his game, the cornerback out of Louisville, he was shaken up and stayed in the game. So he left the game, came back in the game. We'll see how that goes. Tavondre Sweat was on a snap count, and J.C. Latham had a hip issue in practice, re-aggravated it, played in this game, re-aggravated it. Oli Udoh looked as bad as anybody, okay? He looked terrible. So if the Rams have Oli Udoh at right tackle, that's as big of a mismatch as it gets. They might move Jared Verse over to that side and put Byron Young on the other side. They can do that. They mix and match. They move guys around. I think when you look at the Titans offense, you look at Cam Ward, this is somebody that was making some serious NFL throws this past week against the Broncos. I watched that game in its full conclusion. I watched all 22. Cam Ward's legit. I don't care about the stats. I really do not give a rippity-doo-dah about the stats. When I watch Cam Ward, this guy's already a confident thrower of the football, okay? He's got good accuracy. He has multiple speeds. He can throw the fastball, but he can also lay it up with touch. He had some drops, like mentioned. Ridley, too. Io Manor dropped one as well, the rookie. But I'm telling you now, Cam Ward is going to figure it out this season, and they're going to be a problem. And they might not win the game, but they're going to be competitive in those games at the end of the year. I think they'll be competitive in this one, but I just think it's too much. Cam Ward had over 50% of his dropbacks. He was pressured last week. So you have that. Tony Pollard, okay? I don't know if they will. He only had one catch for almost 30 yards. I expect they're going to get Tony Pollard involved in the passing game. They're going to let him be that safety blanket for a Cam Ward, right? So you have Tony Pollard. Can he run the football against this Rams defense? We saw this past week, the Texans tried to run the football. People, and I saw this. People looked at Nick Chubb's stats and they're like, oh, he got 60 yards. Is Nick Chubb back? No, Nick Chubb got 60 yards because he had a carry that went for 15 when this team was tired. Okay, it was back, I think, 3 and outs in a row for the Rams. I mean, there you go. So, can you run the ball with Tony Pollard? I think he's an incredibly talented player. I think he can. He struggled in pass pro. He's normally good in pass pro. I think the Rams dialing up the blitzes with a Tank McCullough, with an Omar Spates, maybe with a Nate Landman. I think they're going to get to him. Calvin Ridley, always a threat, explosive, held really in check below 30 yards last week. He's somebody that can really be a problem, though. You mentioned him earlier. I mean, he's really good. Tyler Lockett, Chig Okonkwo. I think Chig Okonkwo and Gunnar Helm are going to be really interesting in this game. They're already getting Gunnar Helm, the rookie, some love in the passing game. Again, what do young quarterbacks tend to lean on? They tend to lean on the running back room, pass catching out of the backfield, and they tend to lean on the tight ends. And why? Because the tight ends are bigger targets to throw to. And I believe Chig Okonkwo or Gunnar Helm or both could have some games this week. And you look, and I mean, I said it in the Texans game. I was like, they're probably going to get Woody Marks involved. They didn't really. They got Dare Agumbawale involved, thank God, because he fumbled. But looking at Dalton Schultz, you could see when they wanted to move the chains and they knew Nico Collins was blanketed and they couldn't get things going, they went to Jaden Higgins, big body receiver, or they went to Dalton Schultz. And I expect the Titans to go to a Chig Okonkwo or a Gunnar Helm. That's what I see. As far as the offensive line, I think Peter Skoronski, who dominated last week, he's a great player. He's going to be stout in this game. I think Lloyd Cushenberry will be better than he was last week, and I think Kevin Zeitler will be good. That said, as Justin said, the tackles are a problem. I don't believe in Dan Moore. I don't care what anyone says about Dan Moore. The guy gave up over 40 pressures, 10 plus sacks last year. He is not a good left tackle. He's just not. They spent 20 plus million on him. He is not worth that at all. And again, I understand this is harsh, but it's the reality. If I get Jared versus Dan Moore, I'm feeling good. If I get Byron Young versus J.C. Latham, Byron Young and J.C. Latham is kind of a stalemate. I think there'll be some reps won, some reps lost. If I get Byron Young or Jared versus, if I move him over versus Oli Udoh, now we're talking. Now we're talking about a catastrophic meltdown. Now we're talking about on the level of an Aiden Hutchinson versus an A.J. Arcuri. That's what we're talking about there. That's just the reality of the situation. It doesn't get any worse for the Titans there. Cam Ward already faced pressure last week, so I feel like he's somewhat built up for this because he already experienced this level of defense last week, okay? That said, I don't think you get used to having this much pressure. I think the Rams defense is going to be too much for Cam Ward. I just do. He'll make some good throws, but I don't expect him to play better than CJ Stroud did. I thought Stroud played a good game, all things considered. The defense, though, okay? You got safeties we didn't even talk about. I mean, look, I think Amani Hooker, he didn't have his best game last week. Some missed tackles, 3 as a matter of fact. 3 missed tackles for Amani Hooker at safety, but Xavier Woods played a really good game. Was really impressed with what I saw in coverage from him. And then, I think you look at that secondary. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed, if he's back to 100%, and I don't know if he is or not, is he going to be a snap count? Is he not? L'Jarius Sneed, they paid top dollar to. When we know this guy, the big issue with L'Jarius Sneed is he's going to get penalized. But what he does is he can really shut down a receiver. Then you look at Jarvis Brownlee Jr., like I mentioned. Is he going to play? Is he going to have a snap count? I don't know. He is fantastic in run support, though. That's one thing to be for sure. So I like Brownlee in run support. This is a guy that had 5 defensive stops, last week. Brownlee is somebody that they really like. Roger McCreary, he can be a problem in the slot. So, you look at him, he's really made significant strides as a cover guy. So these are guys in the secondary that the Rams are going to have to, navigate around. Then you have, guys like Oladejo, who we've talked about because we talked about the draft. Oladejo had 2 pressures. I thought he looked pretty good, right? Then you have, they got Quandre Diggs involved. Diggs has given the Rams fits in the past. He's not the same Quandre Diggs from when he was with the Seahawks, but he's still a good football player. Cody Barton, a player that we mentioned, hey, he could be a good fit for the Rams. Well, he's on the Titans. Good player, in the middle there at linebacker. Cedric Gray is another good player, good tackler. These are guys that are, I think, in a lot of ways, and this is what I keep saying and why I'm just not giving up on this Titans team, and why I'm not saying that this will be a blowout, is because the Titans do have a lot of good players. Cedric Gray and Cody Barton, I'm not saying they're as good, as some of the guys that they have over in Houston, but I think this defense is really good. I do. I was really impressed with what I saw on film. And like Justin mentioned, we're talking about 6 turnovers that they had, if you count 2 turnover on downs, which should be considered turnovers. So when you talk about 6 turnovers, this defense did everything they could, and they still lost by 8. So say what you will, the way that they played in Denver was eye-opening to me. It shows me that Denard Wilson knows what he's doing. He comes from the school of Mike McDonald, who was the defensive coordinator for the Ravens and is doing a great job building a defense in Seattle, had them win 10 games last year. But I am not out on this team. I understand it's going to be smooth. It's not going to be smooth sailing. It's going to be a little shaky. In a lot of ways, I'm not saying they're as good as the Texans, but in a lot of ways, they're similar. They got a kind of a scary little secondary there. I think Amani Hooker's a little bit of a weak link. Like, they don't have, a perfect secondary, but I like their secondary. The edge defenders, Arden Key, Draymond Jones, Oladejo, I like those guys. Don't get me wrong. With that said, I feel as though they are missing a legit pass rusher, and sure enough, Harold Landry, who has been with the team forever, and then eventually he goes on to the Patriots. Landry looked insane on Sunday for the New England Patriots. So I feel like they are missing that closer pass rusher. That comes from the interior with Jeffrey Simmons. I mean, aside from that, they're not getting a ton of rush off the edge, and that's just the reality of that. Arden Key only had a pressure. Oladejo had 2 pressures. So what I will say is this. I think the Texans are clearly a better defense. I think they're better coached, but I think the Titans have some moments here. I think they might have a better interior than the Texans do. Edge defenders, Texans all the way. Linebackers are similar. Secondary is still the Texans, but I think they have a solid secondary. The offensive line, the Titans have a better offensive line. They have the same tackle issues that the Texans do, but their interior is stout. And then you look at their tight ends. I think they're close. I would probably take Dalton Schultz over Chig Okonkwo, but I really like Okonkwo and I like Gunnar Helm. And then the receivers, I'm going to give to the Texans all day because they have one of the best receiver rooms in the league. Running back right now, Nick Chubb or Tony Pollard. I think I'd rather have Tony Pollard. And Cam Ward versus CJ Stroud, I'd rather have CJ Stroud. So what are the Rams facing this Sunday? They're facing a young, a hungry, a rebuilding team, but a team that could play spoiler. I'm not saying they're going to win. I don't have them winning. I have the Rams winning 23-13, but I'll tell you right now, the Rams in this iteration, I don't care what anyone says. They're young, but they're not that young. They have young guys that have veteran mentalities. You look at a Kobe Turner, you look at Puka Nacua, you look at Steve Avila. These guys have veteran mentalities. Again, young team, Jared Verse, young, but veteran, right? And what I say is this, the Rams aren't going to overlook anyone. I don't care what anyone says. You as a fan can look forward to the Eagles game, okay? Know and feel confident. We don't need to have bulletin board material. We don't need to hear about they're going to overlook. We don't need to hear about trap game. We don't need to hear it this year from anybody because the Rams aren't overlooking a damn soul this year. They know their mission is to go and win the Super Bowl. And the way to do that is take care of business every single Sunday, Thursday if they play, or Monday if they play. That's just the reality of it. That's who the Rams are. So they're not overlooking anybody. They're not going to go around in Tennessee and just completely have their salad tossed. Okay, that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Sean McVay is going to have these guys ready to play on the East Coast because he always does. And they're going to come out and they're going to be methodical. And they might not win in the sexiest way because it's early on in the season. But I'm telling you right now, the Rams will win this game. It will be tough, but they will win, and they'll move on to 2-0, and then we have a whole different discussion going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think if this game goes the way I expect, Cam Ward's going to have a lot of pressure. He's going to make some good throws. He's going to make some bad decisions. He's going to be sacked a lot. I think if this game goes the way I expect, the Rams are going to be able to run the football in some capacity, open up play action. I think in the second half, this is when the two will separate. I think the first half, Titans will stick around. I think the second half, the Rams comfortably kind of take over the game. They do whatever they want, and that's how it goes. But I'm thinking in the big, if I had to make a big prediction here, I'd probably go, I think Puka Nacua is probably going to go for 150 in this game. And I understand they got some good, really good run-supportive guys. I mean, Cedric Gray, Cody Barton, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., Xavier Woods, they can tackle. But they haven't seen Puka Nacua. There's not a single soul on the Broncos that runs like Puka Nacua does after the catch. I mean, you could talk about Cortland Sutton being a big-bodied receiver and, if you like Franklin, whatever. These guys don't move with the ball like Puka Nacua does. So that's just the reality of that. Now, I think Puka's going to have a really big game. I think on the defensive side, I think we're going to see a big-time interception. We didn't get to see one on C.J. Stroud. We did, right? But it wasn't like C.J. Stroud threw a bad pass. It was Kobe Durant had a crazy interception that he ripped out of the guy's hands. I think we're going to see a potential jumping of the route. I'm feeling there's a lot of talk about Akello Witherspoon. A lot. Finally, people are starting to listen to me, okay? And we're seeing it all over the internet. Hell, if you guys missed it on Twitter, Richard Sherman quote tweeted my tweet on Akello, giving him praise. Richard Sherman did, right? It's all over the place. Kello is finally starting to get recognition. I feel like this is the week where Kello jumps a route. He hasn't had an interception in a minute. I think he gets one this week on the rookie Cam Ward. Jared Verse didn't have a sack last week. A lot of people got on him despite the fact he won 28% of his pass rushes. I am going to say that he gets a sack this week. And I'm going to say Nate Landman continues doing his thing. And he's going to have 10 plus tackles again. Maybe another forced fumble. Maybe a tackle for a loss. He's going to look good. He's going to be good in coverage. And the Rams are going to move on to 2-0. 23-13 is my final score. And we'll see what ends up happening against the Eagles. I mean, probably after this week, we're looking at Seattle 0-2, Arizona 2-0, 49ers 2-0, and the Rams 2-0. So we'll see what ends up happening. They can double team, triple team, quadruple team Jared Verse all they want. But I think the problem is, and this is why the Rams are so dominant, is that they have so many guys. Byron Young can win one-on-one. Kobe Turner can win. Puna Ford can win one-on-one. Braden Fisk, not worried about it. Not even worried in the slightest. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, special shout out to Sleeper, as always, for sponsoring today's live stream and this video, because it'll be a video after it's a live stream, so people, Anyway, we got a super chat, and then I'll just wrap this up. Shout out to LA Canuck for getting in the action there. Great update. Thank you, Jake. Are you coming to SoFi this year, Carl? Yes, Carl, I am coming to SoFi twice. So I'll be at the 49ers game with the roundtable guys. Really excited for that. Yeah, so I'm going there, and then that'll be, I believe, week 5. No George Kittle, by the way. So good luck. Then week 14 or 15 or 16, I don't remember exactly the week, but Rams Lions. I'll be out there with my father, and I'm actually going to be at Rams 49ers in Santa Clara. So going to 3 Rams games this year. Looking forward to seeing everyone. Really looking forward to seeing everyone. We'll do some meetups, have some fun. Probably a meetup in the Rams Lions. I don't know where that will be. We did RWO last year. And for those of you who are interested, I did order my Midnight Mode helmet because I'm not like a huge fan of the shoulder caps on the jerseys, and I'm not a huge fan of the jerseys with the long sleeves, and I'm not a huge fan of the white number. That said, I'll probably at some point someday buy one just to have it. But that said, the helmet is the best part of the new uniform. So that will be on that shelf over there. We'll reconfigure things and it'll look beautiful. So I'm really excited to add the Midnight Mode helmet to my backdrop. I think it'll look fire. We'll probably put Mando below there, and I'll have to mess around where to put him. I mean, I don't know. We'll figure it out. That said, appreciate you guys. It's always a pleasure. It's always a privilege. And I just want to remind you guys, and we actually changed the time today, that I'm going to be live again at 4, and it will not be on this channel. So I want you guys to, if you guys can do me a solid, I'd really appreciate it. I know some of you already follow, but over on the Off the Edge channel with Cameron Lynch, if you guys believe in Rams, you guys will really like this one. So Off the Edge, we are back. Cameron Lynch, former Rams linebacker, and I are back. And we are doing our week 2 picks at 4 p.m. Eastern time. That's 1 p.m. Rams time. We're going to be talking about all the games. I know some of you, come in and, they ask, okay, hey, who's going to win? And, probably for sleeper purposes, right? But the thing is, we are going live instead of 5:30. We're going live at 4. I'm stoked. Love Cam. Love working with him. Love his energy. He's a great co-host. And if you guys missed him, we're back. We are a duo. And 4 p.m. Eastern time, we want you guys to tune in live and check it out. So there it is, right there. The link is in the chat. I'll put it in the description if you're watching it after the fact. Check out Off the Edge. Hit your subscribe button. We'll probably do a giveaway for an NFL jersey at some point for people that are subscribed. So be sure to do that. Be sure to check out Sleeper, and be sure to enjoy the rest of your day if I don't see you. Or if I do see you, I still want you to enjoy the rest of your day. So everyone have a great Wednesday. Appreciate you taking a little bit out of that Wednesday to spend it with me, and vice versa. And I'll see you guys soon.